According to brand new data, it appears that Donald Trump's going to get a huge victory in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back again with a new video, and today we have to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Donald Trump's in a great position to win the swing state of Pennsylvania. Yeah, that's right. Despite what Democrats may claim about the current state of the race and how Harris is actually up by 50 points, we have brand new early voting data that suggests, no, it's not looking good for Democrats whatsoever. And in fact, when you look at the early voting data, voter registration, polling, everything, it all looks bad for Democrats. Now, does that mean for sure Democrats will lose Pennsylvania? Of course not. Pennsylvania can absolutely go to Harris, but these numbers are so bad for Democrats that it makes you really wonder, how likely is it that Harris could actually win Pennsylvania? Because it's not just one metric, it's everything. Like, look at this. The net change in voter registration over the last 7 days. Republicans gained 22,000 voters. Democrats gained not even 10,000. Now, with voter registration, you have to be very careful. It can be misleading, especially in a state like Pennsylvania, because, well, there's a bunch of ancestral Democrats in the Commonwealth, especially in the western half of the state. These are voters that they might have been voting Republican for the last 10 to 15 years, but they still register as Democrats. There's a ton of them in Western PA. That's a fact. And it's a possibility that these new Republicans, these are just Democrats that have been voting Republican anyways, so it's not really a gain for them. But you cannot tell me with a straight face that every single new Republican is just ancestral Democrats. It's not. You don't explain a consistent trend of Republicans out-register Democrats 2-1, 3-1. Every time there's a new update, it gets even worse for Democrats. Okay, fine. A part of it is Democrats switching their party registration to Republican. I'm not denying that. But it's been going on for years now. And at some point, it becomes apparent that these are not just ancestral Democrats. A large chunk of it probably is. But I highly doubt that the vast majority of these new Republicans, they're just former Democrats. Is it possible? I guess. But you cannot tell me with a straight face that Republicans have been gaining so many new voters in PA that all of them, not just a few of them, but every single voter they've gained, they're just ancestral Democrats. I highly doubt that's the case. It's possible, I guess, that it's a majority, but do you really think that every new voter Republicans are gaining, they're just ancestral Democrats? I highly doubt it. But fine. Voter registration isn't everything. It can be misleading because you do got a lot of ancestral Democrats. And I agree with that. Voter registration isn't everything, but it is a good indicator, especially if it's every single update, it's more and more Republican. If it's a consistent trend like it's been, that's a big deal. But fine. Voter registration, it's not everything. Okay, let's look at the polling right now. Oh, it's a Trump lead on the RCP average. That's despite there being three big outliers of Harris +2, Harris +3, and of course, Bloomberg with Harris +5. Yeah, Trump is up in the RCP average by just under half a point, despite Bloomberg, despite Quinnipiac, despite the New York Times posting bullshit. They're the only pollsters right now that have Harris winning Pennsylvania. Every other pollster, Emerson, Insider Advantage, Trafalgar, Wall Street Journal, Atlas Intel, Rasmussen, everyone is showing Trump is up in Pennsylvania. And if it wasn't even for the Bloomberg poll, Harris +5, really? You're still finding Harris +5? Give me a freaking break. But if it wasn't for that one poll, Trump right now in the RCP average, more than likely, would be up by a point. Maybe 2. And for Harris, that's a complete disaster. For those that don't remember, polling in Pennsylvania can be pretty bad. For example, back in 2020, in roughly the same time period, the middle of October, it was Biden +7, +7, +6, +5, +4, when he won by a point. Yeah, they were off by 3 to 5 points in the middle of October. 2016, it was even worse. Look at this. Clinton +9, Clinton +10, +8, +7. And then at the very end, it becomes a little bit better. It happened both times. In 2020, the polls in October in Pennsylvania, they sucked. Both in 2020 and 2016. Look at this. They were not remotely accurate until the final week of the election. And in 2020, you can argue the only reason that the RCP average was anywhere close to being accurate, actually was spot on, was because of Susquehanna, Trafalgar, Insider Advantage, finding very small Trump leads. If it wasn't for that, it would be Biden +4, +5, +6, or some crazy number like that. Yeah, Pennsylvania polling is trash, especially in October. Yet right now, Trump's up by just under half a point. And that's with some big outliers. Not in favor of Trump, no, in favor of Harris. Harris +5, Harris +3, Harris +2, when literally everyone else either found a tied race or a Trump lead. Everyone else found a tied race or a Trump lead except 3 shitty pollsters. And they are shitty pollsters, like Bloomberg, they're garbage. Quinnipiac is awful. The New York Times, it's pretty bad. They're the only ones right now that found Trump losing Pennsylvania. The only ones. When everyone else is saying Trump's up in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I think it's a big deal that everyone is saying, except 3 pollsters, yeah, more than likely Trump is up in Pennsylvania right now. And that's assuming there's no polling miss. The polls are 100% spot on, no error, nothing. We have to assume that. Because we know with Pennsylvania polling in October, there can be huge misses. Will there be a 5-point miss? No. Will there be a 10-point miss? Probably not. I highly doubt it. You're not going to see a 5 to 10-point miss, but would it be crazy to say maybe it's a 2-point miss? Maybe a 3-point miss? Especially in Pennsylvania? Is that really crazy to say? I mean, this is a state that back in 2016 and 2020, the polls were garbage in. They understated Trump by a lot until the very end, when by some miracle, the polls became very close. Yet right now in the RCP average, despite being down by 5 points in 2020, being down by 7 points in 2016, Trump is leading the RCP average. Now, is it possible there could be a polling miss in favor of Harris? I guess. But I find that so unlikely, just for the simple fact it hasn't happened in Pennsylvania in 2020 or 2016. When Trump's on the ballot every year, Republicans in Pennsylvania are dramatically overstated, or understated, I should say. Is it possible the polls are actually spot on, or in fact understate Harris a little bit? Yeah. But I still find it very unlikely. I just don't think you're going to see a Harris polling miss. It's possible, but do you really think with pollsters like Bloomberg, Quinnipiac, and the New York Times posting their shit that they're going to be right? When everyone else is showing Trump leads? It's possible, I guess, but who do you trust more? Emerson, Insider Advantage, Tip, Trafalgar, or do you trust the New York Times, Quinnipiac, and Bloomberg? I'm going to go with Emerson. I'm going to go with Insider Advantage because they have good track records, at least better than the New York Times or Quinnipiac, especially Quinnipiac and Bloomberg. Those polls just suck. But fine. Polling isn't everything. Same thing with voter registration. It can be misleading, and maybe, just maybe, it's entirely possible that Pennsylvania polls actually understate Harris. Even though that sounds just absolutely crazy to suggest, that's what some Democrats are banking on. They're really banking on the idea that, well, these far-right pollsters like Insider Advantage, Emerson, Trafalgar, they're going to understate Harris, and that's why we're actually winning. And I know that sounds crazy, but some Democrats really believe that, oh, the polls are going to understate Harris this time around. That's just crazy, but fine. Well, let's just say by some miracle, the polls don't matter, voter registration doesn't matter either. Fine. All right, none of it matters. There's, however, one metric that even some Democrats are finally starting to admit that they have a problem with. Early voting. Now, of all the metrics I've shown you today, I would argue this is the biggest disaster for Democrats as of now. Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say this is DEFCON 1 for Dems. It is real bad. Now, I know people are going to say, but Democrats are going to vote on election day, which I'm not denying it. In fact, I actually believe compared to 2020 and 2022, you will see more Democrats vote on election day. I think you will. Now, the problem for Democrats is they're making it sound like it's the 85% of Democrats are going to vote on election day. The problem is it's not. There's been studies from NBC News, Gallup, Pew Research. Everyone that's done a study on this, they all found the same thing. The majority, or at least a plurality of Harris supporters, they're going to vote by mail, vote early, whatever. They're not going to vote on election day. And this is the biggest problem Democrats have, and they're not willing to accept it. They really believe that they're going to actually all show up on election day. These people have been voting by mail, voting early in person for years now. By some miracle, they're all going to show up on election day. Despite every study showing, no, these people are going to vote early, and that's it. Democrats have convinced themselves, actually, no, they're not going to vote early. They're going to vote on election day. And that's why these numbers are actually good news for us. What a load of crap. That's not going to happen. These people, they're going to vote early. They're not going to vote on election day. Compared to 2020, fine. At higher rates, they will vote on election day. But to say that they're all going to show up with record turnout on election day is bullshit. We know this for a fact. And even then, the numbers with early voting in Pennsylvania are absolutely atrocious for Democrats. Look at absentee requests. Back in 2020, Democrats made up roughly 63% of absentee requests, and that was the final. In 2022, roughly 68%. As of a couple days ago, and these numbers actually have been updated, Democrats are not even at 60%. They are barely above 59%. In fact, the last update, I believe they're below 59% now. And look at the trend. Every single day since requests started, Democrats have gone down, 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 while Republicans have gone up and up and up. And in fact, they're accelerating. They are surging. Republicans, as we get closer to election day, they're actually requesting even more ballots. Look at this. At the start of the request cycle, it was 64% Democrat and only 25% Republican. But now it's 28% Republican and not even 60% Democrat. These numbers suck for Democrats. And even returns, which that's the copium Democrats are using, but the absentee returns. Look at it. It's 67% Democrat compared to 2020 when it was only 65% Democrat. Okay, that's true, but that's a bit misleading for a couple reasons. For starters, the big counties like Philly, Allegheny, Chester, Democrat areas, they started returning ballots much earlier than the rest of the state. That's a fact. That's what Democrats are not mentioning. Yeah, they had a head start at early voting, just the simple fact that Allegheny, Philly, Chester, the Democrat parts of Pennsylvania, they started voting earlier. That's why early on they had such a big lead, and right now they actually have a decent-sized advantage. Problem is, the rest of the state is voting, and look at the trend. On the first day of returns, it was 19% Republican, 72% Democrat. Now, as of a couple days ago, it was not even 67% Democrat, and it's just above 24% Republican. And these numbers, by the way, they're actually out of date a little bit. We have updated numbers, and apparently, Democrats are not even at 66% in returns now. Yeah, in one day, they went from 67% of the returns to not even 66%. While Republicans, they are above 25%. And in fact, these numbers are going to get even worse for Democrats because guess what? Other counties are going to start reporting results, or at least returns. And these areas are super Republican. There's a good chance by election day, and I'm not saying this is for sure going to happen, but there's a chance the Republicans are 30% of the returns, while Democrats are not even 60%. If that's the case, that Republicans crack 30%, Democrats are in deep trouble here. Because, yes, it's true that Democrats are going to vote more on Election Day. The problem is, like I've said before, they still rely heavily on early votes. And if they're not even 60% of the early vote, they are in deep trouble. There's a good chance that Republicans could be at 30% of the early vote. Which, that might actually be low, because there's some people suggesting that it could be even worse for Democrats. It could be like 55% Democrat or something like that. If that really does happen, Harris not going to win Pennsylvania. Now, I should say that there's a possibility, of course, but I just would find it so hard to believe that Democrats are down so much in early voting, not just, raw votes wise, which is bad enough, but as a percent of the returns. They're down, or at least they're going to be down by a lot. And for those that are saying, well, it's early, things could change, maybe the Harris campaign will pick it up in a week or so. There was a bombshell report dropped from Politico. Yes, Politico, not Fox News, not Newsmax, Politico. They outright admitted that the Harris operation in Pennsylvania is a complete shit show. The same operation trying to collect ballots? Yeah, apparently there is a lot of internal fighting in Pennsylvania. No one knows what the hell is happening. It's a complete mess. It's a joke. That's what Politico is reporting. This is not good for Harris at all, because if Republicans are now picking up steam in early voting, and now this drops, I mean, this is not just any random state, it's Pennsylvania. She is in deep trouble. But like I've said before, this doesn't mean that Harris will for sure win Pennsylvania. I am not saying that. But these numbers right now are so bad for her that how can anyone say as of now Harris is the clear favorite in Pennsylvania? No. Trump right now is the favorite. Is it by 80 points? No. But I would say it's clear as day that Trump is a favorite. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.